Intelligence is not something that arrives fully formed. It is not a gift that descends at birth and determines destiny forever. Intelligence is built, refined, and sharpened through daily discipline. Talent may open a door, but discipline decides how far one walks through it. Without structure, even the most gifted mind becomes scattered. With discipline, an ordinary mind becomes exceptional. Daily discipline begins with how a woman treats her time. Time is not spent casually, it is respected. Every morning becomes a quiet agreement with herself to act intentionally rather than react impulsively. She understands that the mind absorbs whatever it is fed repeatedly. If it is fed chaos, it produces confusion. If it is fed focus, it produces clarity. Discipline means choosing what enters the mind before the world chooses for her. She trains herself to do what needs to be done, even when she does not feel like it. Motivation is unstable. Feelings rise and fall. Discipline remains. On days when enthusiasm disappears, structure carries her forward. She reads when others scroll. She reflects when others distract themselves. These small choices appear insignificant in the moment, yet over time they shape the way she thinks, analyzes, and decides. Intelligence grows through repetition. Thinking clearly is a practiced skill. She questions her assumptions daily. She reviews her actions without self-deception. She notices where emotion overrides logic and corrects it gently but firmly. This inner correction requires honesty, and honesty requires discipline. It is easier to blame circumstances than to examine oneself, but intelligence demands self-examination. Daily discipline also governs how she speaks. She does not fill silence to feel important. She pauses before responding. She weighs her words because she understands that language shapes thought. Speaking less but with precision strengthens mental clarity. Each restrained response trains the mind to remain calm under pressure. Over time, this habit creates a woman whose presence feels composed even in difficult situations. Her discipline extends to learning. She does not rely on what she already knows. She studies consistently, not obsessively. A few pages read every day sharpen perception more than occasional bursts of effort. She learns not to impress others, but to refine her understanding of the world. She accepts that ignorance is not shameful, but refusing to learn is. This humility keeps her mind flexible and adaptive. Emotional discipline is a foundation of intelligence. She allows herself to feel, but she does not allow emotions to dictate her behavior. When anger arises, she does not act immediately. When sadness appears, she does not collapse into it. She observes her emotional state as information, not instruction. This separation between feeling and action protects her judgment. Over time, she becomes emotionally steady, which strengthens mental endurance. She disciplines her environment because the mind mirrors surroundings. Clutter outside creates clutter inside. Noise disrupts focus. She creates spaces that support clarity rather than distraction. This is not about perfection, but intention. A disciplined environment reduces mental friction, allowing deeper thought and sustained concentration. Consistency is her quiet weapon. She understands that intelligence compounds. A single day of discipline changes little. Hundreds of days transform everything. While others search for shortcuts, she commits to process. While others burn out chasing intensity, she advances steadily. This patience is not passive, it is deliberate. Discipline also means saying no. No to unnecessary drama. No to habits that dull the mind. No to people who drain energy without contribution. Each refusal strengthens self-respect. Each boundary preserves cognitive resources. Intelligence requires energy, and she protects it fiercely. She holds herself to standards even when no one is watching. This private integrity sharpens her thinking. When actions align with values, the mind becomes clear. There is no internal conflict draining attention. Decisions become simpler. Focus deepens naturally. Daily discipline does not make her rigid, it makes her free. Free from impulsive behavior. Free from mental chaos. Free from the constant need for external validation. Her intelligence becomes embodied rather than displayed. It shows in how she moves through challenges with calm precision. Talent may create early praise, but discipline creates lasting mastery. Discipline trains the mind to endure difficulty, absorb complexity, and remain grounded under pressure. Over time, this disciplined mind develops insight that cannot be taught quickly or copied easily. This is how intelligence is built. Not in moments of inspiration, but in quiet daily choices. Not through natural brilliance, but through deliberate structure. Not by chance, but by commitment to consistent self-governance. Silence and observation are the invisible tools of a highly intelligent woman. They are habits cultivated, not accidental. In a world that celebrates noise, quick responses, and immediate opinions, she moves differently. She understands that speaking first rarely proves wisdom, and listening first always reveals truth. Silence is not emptiness. It is presence. It is patience. It is power. And observation is not passive watching. It is active engagement with reality, seeing what is said and what is left unsaid, what is acted upon and what is avoided. Together, silence and observation sharpen judgment because they create space for understanding, for reflection, and for insight that others miss in their haste to react. A woman who masters silence knows the difference between responding and reacting. Most people fill quiet moments with words to prove themselves, to convince others of their intelligence, or to avoid the discomfort of stillness. She does not. She allows silence to sit with her. She allows questions to linger unanswered. She allows tension to breathe without forcing resolution. In that space, she hears things others overlook. Subtle shifts in tone, the hesitation in speech, the micro-expressions on a face all become clear because she is not drowning in her own voice. Her mind remains free to notice, free to process, free to discern. Observation is the companion of silence. She observes not to judge impulsively, but to understand fully. She watches patterns rather than isolated events. She notices how people behave when they think no one is looking, how they respond to stress, how they treat those who cannot benefit them. She studies the alignment between words and actions. She learns to read between the lines because truth is rarely spoken directly. It is in the pauses, in the glances, in the small decisions repeated over time. Observation requires patience, which is itself a form of discipline. She knows that judgment made in haste is often flawed, but judgment formed from careful watching is informed and precise. Silence also sharpens judgment because it protects mental energy. Speaking or reacting too soon scatters thought. Noise consumes attention. By remaining quiet, she preserves clarity. She listens more than she speaks. She asks questions that invite depth rather than answers that confirm her assumptions. Her silence is strategic. It is a tool for learning, for understanding, for seeing beyond the surface. It is not submission nor is it weakness. It is strength disguised as stillness. Observation trains empathy as well as intellect. By seeing and listening before judging, she begins to understand the motivations behind actions, the fears hidden beneath confidence, the insecurities masked by bravado. This does not make her naive, it makes her wise. Wisdom comes not from believing what is obvious, but from uncovering what is concealed. Observation allows her to anticipate outcomes, to predict behavior, to make decisions that are measured rather than impulsive. When she speaks or acts, it is with authority because it is informed by evidence she gathered silently. In the workplace, in relationships, in life, silence and observation are her shields. She does not need to dominate conversations to influence. She does not need to control situations to understand them. She watches, she listens, and she waits. Others often misinterpret silence as indecision or passivity, but she knows it is preparation. Every choice she makes is preceded by careful assessment. She does not react to drama, she observes it. She does not argue with chaos, she studies it. Her responses are measured because her mind has been unclouded by noise, by ego, by haste. The habit of silence also teaches restraint. She learns to hold back opinions, to weigh words before speaking, to consider the timing of disclosure. Speaking too soon often leads to regret. Speaking without full understanding often leads to error. By practicing restraint, she ensures that her interventions are meaningful, necessary, and impactful. Silence gives her the advantage of reflection, and reflection is the cornerstone of sound judgment. Observation extends beyond people. She observes circumstances, opportunities, and her own internal states. She notices trends, she discerns patterns in events, and she studies cause and effect in her life. She is attentive to details that others dismiss as trivial because she knows that mastery is built on noticing what is often ignored. Observation is cumulative. Every small detail, every quiet moment of attention adds layers of understanding that become intuition over time. Her judgment grows sharper because it is grounded in a deep, nuanced awareness of reality. Silence and observation also cultivate emotional intelligence. By watching and listening, she learns how to navigate human behavior without being swept away by it. She recognizes manipulation, identifies dishonesty, and perceives unspoken intentions. She understands the dynamics of influence, power, and desire. Emotional acuity emerges not from constant talking, but from quiet awareness. The mind that has trained itself to observe without distraction is free to analyze without bias, to judge without haste, and to act without reaction. Through years of practicing silence and observation, judgment becomes instinctive yet deliberate. It is neither rigid nor impulsive. It balances logic and intuition, facts and context, mind and heart. Her decisions are rarely regretted because they are informed by careful watching, careful listening, and careful thinking. Others may question why she did not speak sooner or act immediately, but the results prove her wisdom. She understands that life rewards patience, attention, and thoughtful analysis far more than it rewards impulsive cleverness. The world often misunderstands silence. It mistakes it for shyness, for timidity, for a lack of ideas. But the woman who cultivates silence knows that speaking is not a measure of intelligence. Quiet observation, considered reflection, and deliberate response are what build insight, perception, and sound judgment. Over time, this practice rewires the mind. She sees connections others miss. She understands motives that remain hidden. She discerns patterns in complexity. Every encounter, every observation, every pause adds to her mental library, expanding her capacity to make decisions that are precise, impactful, and wise. She also recognizes the subtle power of timing. Observation without patience is wasted effort. Silence without strategic purpose is wasted presence. By aligning observation and silence with timing, she maximizes her influence while minimizing conflict. She learns to act when the moment is right, to speak when understanding is complete, and to remain quiet when restraint is stronger than argument. This synchronization of awareness and patience enhances judgment exponentially because she learns not only what is true, but when truth is most effective. Her habit of observing extends to herself as well. She reflects on her actions, her words, and her choices. She notes how her emotions affect her decisions, how her biases influence her perspective, and how her reactions may reveal hidden vulnerabilities. This self-observation is critical because judgment is meaningless without self-awareness. She recognizes that the mind must first govern itself before it can assess others accurately. By observing herself, she strengthens her mental clarity, reduces blind spots, and refines her decision-making process. Every decision, every assessment, every conclusion becomes sharper because it is rooted in the continuous practice of silence and observation. She learns that haste clouds clarity, that impulsive reaction breeds error, and that wisdom emerges only from patience, attention, and reflection. Her mind becomes a tool finely tuned, not by noise or external recognition, but by disciplined attention to the world as it truly is. Emotional regulation is not simply a skill. It is a form of mental power that distinguishes the highly intelligent woman from those who are ruled by fleeting feelings. It is the ability to feel deeply without surrendering control, to experience intensity without being consumed by it, and to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. While many confuse emotional expression with emotional intelligence, she understands that true mastery lies not in the display of emotion, but in the command of it. The power of her mind is revealed in how she navigates emotional currents without being swept away, and this is cultivated through deliberate practice, self-awareness, and daily discipline. The first step in emotional regulation is awareness. She does not ignore her feelings, nor does she pretend they do not exist. She acknowledges anger, sadness, disappointment, or fear, but she does not allow them to dictate her actions immediately. Awareness creates distance between impulse and response. When a wave of emotion arises, she pauses. She breathes. She observes the sensation as if from the outside, noticing its origin, intensity, and potential impact. This simple act, acknowledging the emotion without immediate reaction, is the foundation of mental strength. It transforms raw feeling into information rather than instruction, allowing her to navigate life with clarity and intention. Emotional regulation requires discipline. The mind must be trained to resist the urge to act solely based on how it feels in the moment. Most people are reactive. They speak when anger strikes, withdraw when sadness appears, or overcompensate when insecurity surfaces. The highly intelligent woman is different. She has cultivated the habit of responding, not reacting. She chooses her words carefully, times her actions wisely, and considers consequences before letting emotion guide behavior. This restraint is not suppression, it is strategic control. Suppressing emotion creates tension and resentment. Regulating emotion transforms energy into deliberate action. Self-reflection is a crucial component of emotional power. She consistently examines the patterns in her emotional responses. She identifies triggers and understands why certain situations provoke strong feelings. By studying herself, she builds a map of her inner landscape. She recognizes vulnerabilities without being defined by them. She understands that past experiences influence present reactions, yet she does not allow past pain to control present decisions. This reflection requires honesty, courage, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths about oneself. Emotional regulation is also rooted in perspective. She understands the temporary nature of most emotional states. Anger may flare and fade. Disappointment may sting for a moment but will eventually diminish. By keeping a broader perspective, she prevents temporary emotions from shaping permanent choices. She weighs her responses against long-term goals, values, and vision. This foresight converts emotion from a potential liability into a source of insight. When faced with difficult situations, she can harness emotional energy without losing rational judgment, turning challenges into opportunities for growth rather than chaos. The practice of mindfulness reinforces her emotional power. She cultivates the ability to remain present, observing thoughts and feelings as they arise without immediate engagement. This creates mental space, allowing her to choose responses that align with intention rather than impulse. Mindfulness trains the mind to separate sensation from action, teaching that emotions are signals to be interpreted rather than commands to be obeyed. Over time, this practice rewires the mind, strengthening neural pathways associated with self-control, focus, and clarity. Emotional regulation also enhances resilience. Life inevitably presents setbacks, betrayals, and disappointments. The highly intelligent woman experiences these challenges, but she does not allow them to destabilize her. She maintains composure under pressure, thinking strategically rather than succumbing to panic. By regulating her emotional responses, she preserves her energy, sharpens her reasoning, and maintains control in situations where others falter. Resilience is not born from indifference, but from the deliberate cultivation of emotional power. Her relationships benefit from this mastery as well. Emotional regulation does not make her distant or cold. On the contrary, it allows her to connect with others authentically and with clarity. She can empathize without losing herself, provide support without being drained, and assert boundaries without guilt. She recognizes that emotional volatility damages trust, whereas steadiness cultivates respect. Her calm presence in turbulent moments becomes a source of influence and leadership because she demonstrates control over herself before attempting to influence others. Discipline in emotional regulation extends to communication. She chooses when to speak and when to remain silent, understanding that words spoken in emotional turbulence often create regret. She frames responses thoughtfully, ensuring that her communication aligns with reason and intention rather than impulse. By mastering this habit, she avoids unnecessary conflict, prevents misunderstandings, and maintains her integrity. Her mental power lies not in domination, but in the ability to navigate complex emotional landscapes without losing clarity. Emotional regulation is strengthened through routine practices that reinforce self-control. Regular reflection, journaling, meditation, and structured problem-solving all contribute to reinforcing mental habits that prioritize rational thought alongside emotional awareness. She recognizes that consistency is key, that sporadic effort will not build lasting mental strength. By embedding emotional discipline into daily life, she transforms it from conscious effort into instinctive behavior, making self-control second nature. Furthermore, she understands the role of choice in emotional power. She knows that while she cannot control external events or the behavior of others, she can control her reactions. This understanding is liberating. Emotional regulation is not about avoiding feelings, but about choosing how to respond to them. Every choice reinforces mental strength, and every deliberate response builds confidence in her own judgment. Over time, this practice creates a mind that is steady, discerning, and resilient, capable of navigating both internal and external challenges with poise and precision. Emotional regulation also enhances decision-making. Decisions made in the heat of emotion often lead to mistakes, regret, and chaos. By managing her feelings, she allows her intellect to operate unhindered by impulsive urges. Her choices are informed, deliberate, and strategic. This ability to integrate emotion and reason without letting either dominate creates a type of intelligence that is rare yet formidable. Mental power emerges not from knowledge alone, but from the mastery of oneself, from the ability to act thoughtfully under pressure, from the capacity to maintain composure when the mind is tested. Through emotional regulation, she transforms vulnerability into strength. Feeling deeply does not make her weak. Controlling those feelings makes her strong. Anger, fear, sadness, and desire are all raw energy. When unregulated, they cloud judgment and disrupt life. When regulated, they become insight, motivation, and clarity. By mastering emotion, she preserves mental energy, enhances focus, and sharpens perception, building a mind capable of navigating complexity, uncertainty, and challenge with unwavering strength. This mental power, forged through emotional regulation, is a quiet yet undeniable force. It is not announced with words or gestures, but revealed in presence, in calm under pressure, in thoughtful responses, and in the ability to act decisively when circumstances demand it. It shapes her interactions, her decisions, and her life trajectory, because a woman who governs her emotions governs her world. Every act of restraint strengthens neural pathways of reason, focus, and insight, creating a mind that is resilient, perceptive, and authoritative. Consistency in small habits is the quiet engine of inner authority. It is not the grand gestures or occasional bursts of effort that create influence and respect, but the steady, deliberate repetition of small, meaningful actions over time. A highly intelligent woman understands that mastery is not built overnight. It is built daily through repeated choices that reflect her values, discipline, and self-respect. While others chase shortcuts, look for instant results, or measure themselves against external markers, she invests in the slow accumulation of habits that reinforce her inner strength and create an unshakable foundation of authority. Inner authority begins with self-discipline. Each small habit is a declaration that she governs herself rather than being governed by circumstance or impulse. Waking up at a consistent time, prioritizing her mental and physical health, dedicating moments to reflection or study, these may appear insignificant to an outside observer, yet they compound silently, shaping her character, her confidence, and her presence. Consistency in these habits signals to the mind that she is reliable, that she honors commitments to herself, and that she values the structure that supports growth. Small habits are deceptively powerful because they shape identity. When repeated daily, they become part of her subconscious framework. She does not need to remind herself to act with integrity, discipline, or focus. These qualities become automatic through repetition. Brushing off excuses, completing tasks even when motivation falters, maintaining her environment, practicing mindfulness, all these small acts reinforce a sense of self-control. Over time, they create an internal authority that is recognized by others even without explicit assertion. She does not demand respect, she earns it silently through consistency. Consistency in small habits also cultivates resilience. Life inevitably presents challenges that test patience, focus, and strength. The woman who has practiced discipline through small, repeated acts develops a mental framework that can endure stress without collapsing. She has rehearsed persistence through minor daily challenges, which prepares her to navigate major obstacles with grace. Each small habit serves as a rehearsal for greater challenges. Over time, she internalizes the lesson that persistence, rather than luck or circumstance, shapes outcomes, and this understanding strengthens both her confidence and her judgment. Attention to small details is part of this process. A habit as simple as maintaining punctuality, organizing her space, or responding thoughtfully to messages cultivates awareness and reliability. Others may overlook these details, but she knows that authority is expressed in precision, consistency, and the demonstration that she can manage both herself and her commitments. Small actions, when repeated, accumulate into a reputation of competence and steadiness. Authority is rarely proclaimed, it is observed in the way she consistently shows up, handles situations, and navigates her life with integrity. Consistency also builds self-trust, which is the cornerstone of inner authority. When she completes small habits reliably, she proves to herself that she can be counted on. This self-trust allows her to make decisions confidently, speak with conviction, and act decisively without hesitation. Others sense this confidence intuitively. It is magnetic because it is grounded in authenticity. Inner authority does not require coercion or assertion. It emerges naturally when a person demonstrates reliability to themselves first. Daily habits are the bricks that construct this foundation. Small habits refine focus and mental clarity. She dedicates time each day to practices that enhance concentration, such as reading, journaling, reflection, or meditation. While the duration or intensity may seem modest, The consistency develops neural pathways that enhance cognitive endurance and clarity of thought. Each repetition strengthens discipline, reinforcing the ability to resist distraction, prioritize effectively, and make choices aligned with long-term goals. Over months and years, this mental training becomes instinctive, creating a mind that is calm, deliberate, and authoritative in its reasoning. Consistency also teaches patience, which is integral to inner authority. A highly intelligent woman does not expect immediate results from her efforts. She understands that meaningful growth is cumulative, and she approaches her habits with long-term vision. Patience cultivated through daily discipline strengthens her resolve, reduces anxiety about outcomes, and allows her to act strategically rather than impulsively. Others may become frustrated with delays, but she remains composed, confident in the power of consistent effort to generate lasting impact. This patience is part of the aura of inner authority that draws respect and inspires confidence. Small habits reinforce emotional balance as well. By committing to daily routines, whether physical exercise, journaling, mindfulness, or thoughtful engagement with others, she regulates emotional highs and lows. She avoids being ruled by transient moods because her habits anchor her to a steady framework of behavior. Emotional stability is a subtle but powerful form of authority. People sense when someone is centered and composed, and they are drawn to that presence. Consistent habits create this center, which serves as a foundation for influence and decision-making. The compounding effect of small habits cannot be overstated. One focused action repeated over time becomes skill. One skill developed consistently becomes mastery. One area of mastery strengthens confidence, judgment, and presence. This cycle repeats across every dimension of her life: health, relationships, intellect, work, and personal growth. Each small habit, seemingly insignificant in isolation, accumulates into a force that shapes her life and commands respect from the world. Inner authority is the natural outcome of this disciplined, consistent practice. Furthermore, consistency in small habits fosters independence. She relies less on external validation or reinforcement because she has cultivated internal momentum. She can navigate challenges without seeking approval because she has trained herself to act with intention daily. This independence is quietly influential. People sense that her decisions are rooted in self-mastery, not reaction or pressure. Authority in this sense is a reflection of internal alignment. The woman who consistently practices small, purposeful habits aligns her actions with values which communicate strength without needing to declare it. Daily rituals reinforce commitment to self-improvement. Even modest acts of learning, reflection, or refinement, when performed consistently, accumulate into profound expertise and self-assuredness. She demonstrates that excellence is a habit, not a result of chance. Each repetition builds not only skill but also credibility, poise, and the ability to navigate life with confidence. Others may notice her results, but they feel her authority in the way she conducts herself consistently, in her composure, in the assurance that she is in command of her life. Consistency also builds humility alongside authority. She does not rely on grand gestures to assert power, nor does she flaunt her achievements. She understands that true influence emerges from reliability, discipline, and sustained effort. Her authority is quiet, earned through repetition and integrity rather than announced or demanded. Each small habit reinforces a sense of self that is independent, steady, and respected without needing external validation. Her inner authority becomes evident in her interactions. She listens carefully because she is disciplined in observation. She responds thoughtfully because she has trained herself to act deliberately. She maintains boundaries because her habits reinforce respect for herself. She influences without force because her consistency signals competence, reliability, and self-possession. Habits that may seem minor, a calm tone, a thoughtful pause, a structured routine, a deliberate act of kindness, compound to create a woman whose presence commands trust and attention. Through consistent practice, small habits accumulate into a life of mastery, composure, and quiet authority. The repetition of deliberate actions becomes the backbone of her character, the source of her confidence, and the foundation for her influence. Others may overlook the significance of these habits, yet they are the essence of inner authority. What is cultivated daily through discipline manifests in every decision, every response, and every interaction, shaping a presence that is undeniably powerful, self-assured, and commanding. Self-respect is the foundation upon which a highly intelligent woman builds her life. It is not an abstract concept or a fleeting emotion. It is a guiding principle that governs every choice she makes, every boundary she sets, and every ounce of energy she invests. Self-respect is the internal compass that prevents compromise of values for temporary gain, that signals to herself and others the level of treatment she deems acceptable, and that preserves the integrity of her mind, body, and spirit. Without it, decisions become reactive, boundaries become blurred, and energy is dissipated in directions that do not serve her. With it, she cultivates clarity, strength, and influence that is quietly but powerfully recognized. Self-respect begins with choice. Every decision she makes is filtered through the lens of what aligns with her principles and values. She does not act impulsively or yield to pressure simply to please others. When confronted with opportunities or relationships, she assesses them not only for immediate benefit but for alignment with her long-term vision and her sense of dignity. She recognizes that each choice is an affirmation of her identity. Choosing to act in accordance with self-respect reinforces confidence, while choices that disregard her values erode it. Over time, this conscious alignment between decision and principle creates a life that is coherent, intentional, and free from unnecessary compromise. Boundaries are a natural extension of self-respect. They are the visible expression of the invisible standard she maintains for herself and her interactions with the world. She understands that boundaries are not walls, they are filters, guiding what enters her life and what is kept out. She is selective about who she allows into her mental and emotional space, who has access to her time, and who is permitted to influence her thoughts and feelings. By clearly defining what is acceptable and what is not, she protects herself from unnecessary stress, manipulation, and distraction. These boundaries are not set once and forgotten. They are reinforced consistently through actions, tone, and presence, signaling both to herself and to others that she will not tolerate violation of her dignity. Energy management is another critical aspect of self-respect. She understands that energy is finite and its allocation must be intentional. She invests her effort in activities, relationships, and pursuits that support growth, purpose, and fulfillment. She avoids situations that drain her unnecessarily or demand compromise of her values for superficial reward. She recognizes that saying yes when she means no depletes energy and diminishes presence. By respecting her own energy, she preserves mental clarity, emotional stability, and physical vitality. This careful stewardship is not selfish, it is an act of self-preservation that allows her to show up fully in areas where she chooses to commit. Self-respect also manifests in how she communicates. She speaks with conviction, sets expectations clearly, and expresses herself without apology when necessary. She does not dilute her voice to make others comfortable, nor does she permit belittlement or dismissal. Her words carry weight because they are rooted in a sense of self that is steadfast and non-negotiable. Others sense this authority intuitively. When a woman operates from self-respect, her communication transcends persuasion, it commands recognition. People respond to integrity and authenticity more than charm or manipulation, and she leverages this subtle influence through the consistency of her self-respect. Discipline reinforces self-respect. She commits to daily practices that honor her body, mind, and spirit. This may include intentional routines for mental clarity, physical wellness, reflection, learning, and emotional regulation. These habits are not performed for external validation, but as a testament to her own value. Each act of care, each consistent commitment to personal standards, strengthens the internal foundation that guides her choices, boundaries, and energy allocation. Discipline becomes a visible demonstration of respect for oneself, signaling that she considers herself worthy of consistent attention, effort, and nurturing. Self-respect is also intimately tied to resilience. Challenges, setbacks, and external pressures are inevitable in life. A woman who respects herself does not collapse under criticism, betrayal, or disappointment. She understands her worth and refuses to let external circumstances define it. When confronted with adversity, she responds from a position of internal authority rather than panic or self-doubt. Her resilience is grounded in the knowledge that her value is inherent, not contingent upon others' approval, recognition, or validation. This inner stability allows her to navigate complex situations with composure and strength, maintaining the integrity of her choices and boundaries even under pressure. In relationships, self-respect is a non-negotiable standard. She does not tolerate disrespect, manipulation, or exploitation. She evaluates connections based on alignment with her principles, mutual respect, and contribution to her well-being and growth. She does not cling to individuals who undermine her dignity, nor does she compromise her values to maintain harmony at the expense of self-worth. This discernment ensures that her relationships reinforce her energy rather than drain it. She recognizes that self-respect is contagious. The way she honors herself sets the tone for how others treat her. By maintaining firm standards, she naturally attracts people who respect her presence, integrity, and autonomy. Emotional regulation and self-respect are deeply intertwined. By respecting her feelings, acknowledging her needs, and responding thoughtfully, she reinforces the authority she holds over herself. She does not allow external circumstances to dictate her emotional state, nor does she sacrifice her inner peace for superficial comfort. Self-respect provides the framework through which emotional power is cultivated, ensuring that she engages with life from a position of clarity and strength rather than reaction and compromise. Self-respect also influences long-term vision and goal setting. She does not pursue achievements solely for status, recognition, or validation. Her ambitions are aligned with values, purpose, and personal growth. She prioritizes endeavors that honor her intellect, creativity, and integrity. By grounding her aspirations in self-respect, she ensures that the path she walks strengthens her identity and reinforces her authority rather than eroding it in pursuit of superficial gain. Every decision, action, and habit becomes a reflection of self-respect. From the smallest daily choices to the most significant life directions, this principle governs her approach to the world. It is silent yet evident, subtle yet compelling, guiding behavior in ways that are recognized without need for explanation. Self-respect allows her to navigate relationships, opportunities, and challenges with discernment, protecting energy and fostering influence while preserving inner peace. Through this continuous alignment with her own value, she cultivates a life in which choices are intentional, boundaries are clear, and energy is invested wisely. This framework creates inner authority that others cannot challenge because it emerges from consistent, deliberate respect for oneself. Her presence becomes a testament to the power of self-regard, a quiet demonstration that integrity, discipline, and clarity are far stronger than superficial displays of confidence, charm, or aggression. Self-respect is not static, it is reinforced daily through conscious action. It is practiced in decisions both large and small, in the assertion of boundaries, in the management of energy, and in the preservation of mental and emotional clarity. It requires vigilance, consistency, and courage, because the world often tests boundaries and challenges values. Yet through this practice, a woman builds an inner authority that is unshakable, resilient, and unmistakable. It is the force that allows her to navigate complexity, exercise influence, and maintain alignment with herself across every dimension of life. Learning is a lifelong practice, not a phase. It is not a period of life confined to formal education, exams, or the pursuit of credentials. It is a mindset, a habit, and a continuous journey of discovery that extends far beyond classrooms or textbooks. A highly intelligent woman understands that knowledge is not a destination but a river, flowing constantly, demanding curiosity, attention, and adaptability. The pursuit of learning does not end with achievement, it deepens with experience, matures with reflection, and grows richer through application. To embrace learning as a lifelong practice is to commit to growth in every moment, to cultivate mental agility, and to expand the capacity for understanding across the full spectrum of life. The first principle of lifelong learning is curiosity. She does not accept surface explanations, conventional wisdom, or easy answers without questioning them. Curiosity drives her to explore beyond the obvious, to investigate nuances, and to seek understanding in layers. Every experience, conversation, and observation becomes a lesson waiting to be absorbed. This mindset transforms ordinary events into opportunities for growth. A casual encounter, a challenge at work, a difficult conversation, or even a moment of solitude becomes material for reflection, analysis, and insight. Learning is not episodic, it is woven into the fabric of daily life. Lifelong learning requires discipline. Knowledge is accumulated through consistent effort, not sporadic bursts of interest. She reads regularly, studies intentionally, reflects consistently, and applies understanding in practical ways. These small, repeated acts build depth of knowledge that cannot be achieved through intermittent enthusiasm. Discipline ensures that learning becomes a habit rather than a fleeting phase. Even when motivation fades or distractions arise, she continues the pursuit, understanding that mastery and insight emerge gradually through sustained engagement. Learning is also enhanced by observation. She watches the world carefully, noticing patterns, behaviors, and trends that others overlook. She observes people to understand motivation, decision-making, and consequence. She observes systems, processes, and structures to identify what works and what fails. Through careful observation, she transforms experience into knowledge. She recognizes that learning is not only about absorbing information, but about perceiving reality with clarity, connecting dots, and synthesizing understanding that is both practical and profound. Mistakes and failures are integral to lifelong learning. A highly intelligent woman does not shy away from error or discomfort. She views mistakes as data, not as judgment on her worth. Each failure contains a lesson, a clue to improvement, a doorway to understanding. Learning in this context is adaptive. It requires reflection on what went wrong, why it happened, and how to respond differently in the future. Over time, this approach cultivates resilience, sharpens judgment, and enhances problem-solving abilities. She understands that knowledge is incomplete until it is tested against reality, and every misstep becomes an essential part of her education. Self-reflection is another pillar of continuous learning. She regularly examines her thoughts, decisions, and actions, evaluating them against outcomes, values, and goals. Reflection allows her to internalize lessons, identify gaps in understanding, and refine strategies for growth. It is not a passive exercise, but an active engagement with experience. Through reflection, knowledge becomes wisdom, and insight is transformed into practical application. The act of thinking critically about her own thinking cultivates mental discipline, sharpens analytical skills, and ensures that learning remains purposeful rather than superficial. Lifelong learning also requires humility. She acknowledges that no matter how much she knows, there is always more to discover. Curiosity without humility leads to arrogance and stagnation, whereas humility opens the mind to new ideas, perspectives, and innovations. She seeks guidance from those with different experiences, reads widely across subjects, and considers viewpoints beyond her own. This humility fuels adaptability, allowing her to integrate new knowledge into existing frameworks and to challenge assumptions without fear or defensiveness. Application is as important as acquisition. Learning that is never applied remains abstract, disconnected, and incomplete. She integrates knowledge into her life, translating ideas into decisions, insights into behavior, and theory into practice. Application reinforces understanding and transforms learning from passive accumulation to active mastery. She experiments, tests, and refines concepts, observing results and adjusting accordingly. This iterative process strengthens comprehension and builds confidence in her ability to navigate complex situations with intelligence and foresight. Lifelong learning also fosters creativity. Exposure to new information, ideas, and perspectives allows her to combine knowledge in novel ways. She connects seemingly unrelated concepts, identifies patterns, and innovates solutions that others may not see. Creativity emerges not from raw talent alone, but from a mind trained to observe, analyze, and synthesize continuously. Learning as a constant practice ensures that her thinking remains flexible, adaptable, and expansive, capable of generating insights that are both original and actionable. Social engagement amplifies learning. She interacts with individuals from diverse backgrounds, listens actively, and exchanges ideas thoughtfully. Dialogue with others challenges assumptions, introduces alternative perspectives, and stimulates deeper reflection. Learning is not a solitary pursuit. It thrives in collaboration, discussion, and mentorship. By surrounding herself with thinkers, questioners, and doers, she immerses in a dynamic environment that continually tests and expands her understanding. Emotional intelligence is also cultivated through lifelong learning. Understanding human behavior, managing interpersonal dynamics, and navigating emotional landscapes require continuous observation, reflection, and adaptation. She studies not only cognitive subjects, but also human nature, social systems, and the psychology of relationships. Each interaction provides lessons in empathy, communication, and influence, reinforcing the idea that intelligence is not only measured by knowledge, but by the capacity to navigate life effectively and ethically. Technology and the changing world demand ongoing learning. She remains attentive to developments in her field, societal trends, and global shifts. Lifelong learning ensures that she is prepared to adapt, innovate, and make decisions with awareness of evolving contexts. She embraces change as a teacher rather than a threat, understanding that growth comes from continual exposure to the new, unfamiliar, and challenging. Stagnation is the opposite of learning. Adaptability and openness define the trajectory of her intelligence. Finally, learning as a lifelong practice cultivates self-mastery. By engaging consistently in study, reflection, observation, and application, she refines her mind, strengthens discipline, and deepens understanding. Knowledge becomes a tool, wisdom becomes a habit, and insight becomes instinctive. The cumulative effect of continuous learning shapes not only intellect, but character, judgment, and presence. A woman who embraces learning indefinitely builds a mind that is resilient, discerning, and capable of navigating complexity with both clarity and creativity. Each day of learning, no matter how small, compounds over time. The daily decisions to read, reflect, observe, experiment, and refine create momentum that strengthens mental agility, sharpens judgment, and enhances decision-making. The practice of seeking understanding across every dimension of life ensures that intelligence is not static, fleeting, or superficial. It becomes embodied, habitual, and enduring, forming the core of her capability to think deeply, act decisively, and influence the world with insight and authority.